let's get to the wheel before I embarrass myself any further. But Jack got me. He got me good.
He did. He got you.
Yeah. No. I apologize to anybody who might be triggered from that, but
that was Ron Burgundy on the teleprompter.
It was absolutely Ron Burgundy on the teleprompter. D&D just has numbered levels, Paul. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Level 1, level 2, etc. All right. I mean, there's wizards and dragons and shit in there, but
yep.
That's why I thought that.
We're going to play a different game now. That doesn't have anything to do with any organizations mentioned during the show. It's called Fraud or Not a Fraud.
Okay, fraud or not a fraud.
Fraud or not a fraud.
Yeah.
What's that thing when somebody calls you, it's like fraud alert shows up on your caller ID?
Yeah, fraud alert.
Fraud
okay.
alert, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a little fraud alert today. We're talking about teams that have struggled early.
Yeah.
And Paul, you'll just tell me
what
you think. We'll kind of get into it here. So we'll start with, I feel like I know your answer based on that Colorado State preview, but the Colorado Buffaloes.
Total fraud. Absolute fraud. They have nothing up front. They're not going to change anything to go up front. They've got a bad scheme. Deion's adherence to NFL coaches is hurting him right now. He doesn't have the talent up front. You've got to develop talent over time, especially on the lines. Like if you need a guard, go get a guard. But if you need 2 guards, 2 tackles, and a center, you don't have a line. Right. If you need 2 defensive ends and 2 defense tackles and 2 linebackers, you don't have it. So moving 45 players out the door and moving 45 new ones in, and that's not like an Alabama or Georgia graduating 20 guys to the NFL in a dominant championship season. Like, Michigan last year, like part of the reason they're struggling now is they put like 13 guys in the NFL off that team that all made it. I think of like there are teams like 2013 FSU, 2001 Miami, 05 USC, 05 Texas that like all 22 starters like made it to the NFL, like which is just crazy. Like Michigan might have that, like one of the guys that are left over from last year's team and this year, probably all 22 starters going to be in the NFL. That's not the case for the Colorado team. Like you didn't lose a bunch of guys to the NFL. They've lost maybe 1 or 2 that were NFL guys. And again, none of them jump off the top of your head. Now they're going to lose 3 or 4 NFL guys this year, but they're not necessarily replacing them with other NFL guys. And yeah, I think they're a total fraud.
What do you feel like happens now when Shedeur leaves? I mean, are you in the camp that like Deion moves on? I know we talked about him getting a different job, like a better job. I'm not sure that opportunity comes open for him, like unless they improve. So like, what do you think the next move is? Do you feel like he stays and tries to build this thing?
I think that's what he should do. But I'm curious to see how he feels about coaching when he didn't make the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's the thing. It's going to be like, he thinks it's hard now and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Wait until like that guy does not have your DNA. That's going to be real hard. And he's only coached teams that Shedeur was his quarterback. Prime Prep, Shedeur was his quarterback. Jackson State, Shedeur was his quarterback. Colorado, Shedeur was his quarterback. So he's never lived a life where that was a reality. Outside of, when Shedeur got hurt last year and they had to play the backup, but that was a temporary situation.
Right.
And I still think Shedeur should have left after last year. He would have been a first-round pick no matter what. Like, he would have been picked before Bo Nix would have been. And Bo Nix, I like Bo Nix. I'm just saying, probably would have picked before Bo Nix and before Penix. But he wanted to be the number one. Like, he's got, I mean, like, if you want to talk about the apple in the tree, he's got his father's ego, but maybe not his father's work ethic. Because he didn't have to have it, Right. I'm not blaming, like, I don't think Deion's I think Deion's actually probably he seems like a pretty good parent. It's just like, I know where Deion grew up and I know where Shedeur grew up, and it's very different.
Different places.
So it's different, like different challenges, different things. And sometimes you have to fail in order to succeed later. And I think that's what Shedeur is experiencing now where he hadn't before. And so the last couple of years are harder, and he's shown an immense lack of maturity in a lot of these things. but I don't think that could last. I think that you can grow out of that. I think that's unfair for people to say he's always going to be this way. No, you're not always the way you were when you're 22. I mean, you're just not. But I think that they've got problems, and eventually, I do think that there's a risk that Shedeur is going to be look, I can't risk this anymore. I'm opting out.
Yeah. Okay, our next team, Garrett. I'm sorry, LSU. Paul, fraud or not a fraud?
Who?
LSU.
Fraud.
Garrett says fraud. Garrett says fraud. I'm going to take it from him. I like a lot of things about them, but there are things. They're a little bit built like the Cowboys are, where they have things that they're really good at, but they clearly have things that they're missing, which I don't know how in the state of Louisiana, where really the two states I would go for running backs are Florida and Louisiana before anything else. They just kind of churn them out, and mostly because they still run offenses that feature the running back a little bit more in Louisiana and Florida. In the state of Louisiana, where countless unbelievable running backs have come out of, Warwick Dunn, Leonard Fournette, Dalton Hilliard, great college running back. There's a bunch that I can't even get into, but how you cannot happen into one of them, blows my mind. And how all of a sudden, where you could have 4 NFL running backs on that roster and 0 even CFL quarterbacks. Now you have Garrett Nussmeier's an NFL guy. I think he's proven that he's an NFL guy. I don't know to what level, but he's really good. He's got really good wide receivers. He's got 2 really good tight ends, great offensive line, but their running backs just aren't good. And I don't know how that happened. And then you look at good linebackers, good defensive line. All of a sudden, Dave Aranda's gone. No secondary. This is the place that turned out the Honey Badger and Patrick Peterson and Mo Claiborne and Grant Delpit and I don't know how does this happen at LSU? Those are the things that were automatic, and now for some reason under this new regime, they're not. They say what you will about any of the other coaches, Edo, Les Miles. They were 21 for 22. You know what? No, they had good kickers and punters too. They were good kick returners and everything. So if you talk about 25, 26 people who were starters, they were both 25 for 26 every year. And if you could have rotated what that one thing was, they would have won a lot more. But the thing is, it was 25 for 26 every year, and it was always the quarterback. Now their roster's about, let's just say 18 for 26. And those 8 are clearly secondary, maybe a rush end that they don't have, although they have Harold Perkins, and running backs who are just evading. I don't know. It's weird.
They're also really banged up, right, Garrett?
Well, I mean, you're missing some receivers right now. You lost your defensive tackle in Gullery for the year as well. But, dude, I think the biggest thing for me is the offensive line and all that hype when you have Will Campbell and Emory Jones supposed to be your anchoring this unit is completely getting blown up. They're not getting any pressure. They're not pushing people off the line of scrimmage. And it's just defenses. I think USC laid out the perfect way to defend LSU, where you don't allow them to have any, don't let their big plays down the field, make everything go underneath to Taylor, and you could beat them because they can't run the ball. And now they're just kind of stuck in motion, man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they adjust now. ACC wise, Clemson, Paul, fraud or not a fraud?
I think I'm not going to say I don't think they're a fraud. I just think they're not
what they used to be.
They're not what they used to be. I don't think their roster is built to where it can sustain what it was. And I think that was, even though Georgia's going to be better than almost everybody that they play, a step ahead, Clemson was clearly 4 steps behind them. They should just be a step behind them. If you were doing what you used to do, if you were competing and you were getting the kind of talent in, that game, would have only been 34-3 if you had massive injuries, which they did not. And so completely healthy, they lost to Georgia by 31 points. So they're 31 points behind the best team in the country. When Dabo was at his peak, they were at best a touchdown behind that team. They're way past that now. I don't want to call them a fraud because I think they're probably go 8-4, 9-3. That's a good season, but it's not a good season by Clemson standards and what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't think ACC is getting one team in the playoff. I mean, they're not getting two. It's probably going to be Miami. Like the only way Florida State gets in is they win they have to win 11 games in a row, which includes the championship game. I don't see that from this team with DJU as the quarterback. And he's going to roll out there against Memphis this week, and I think that might be his last shot because if they start 0-3, there's no reason to put DJ back there. So with Cade Klubnik, they're stuck with Cade Klubnik. It's not going to be Christopher Vizina. Because they don't have that kind of depth that they used to. It's Cade Klubnik or die for the rest of the year for them, and they better hope he stays healthy.
Okay, coming off a big upset loss, Notre Dame, Paul, fraud or not a fraud? Coming off that Northern Illinois loss.
Notre Dame's a fraud. You shouldn't. If you're the number 5 team in the country, that shouldn't be a thing that happens. And no disrespect to Northern Illinois, they played their hearts out. They played really well, but Notre Dame, you're paying that much for a transfer quarterback. You're not really running an offense that's the best for him, and he's a really good player. He's not as great as everybody says he is, but he's a gamer. You'd want Riley Leonard on your squad, but you got to run a Riley Leonard offense. They weren't doing that the other day. They're not playing to their strengths. Now, their schedule's not that tough on the way out, but I do think that right now USC is going to beat them. That game against FSU is a toss-up. It's in South Bend, but Northern Illinois proved that doesn't matter. So there's things on the schedule where things that I thought were automatic. I think they're going to have, this is a team that was expected to be at least 12th in the playoff. I think they'll probably finish about 20th. If their schedule holds out the way it should. I don't think they're going to be 11-1 or 10-2.
Do you think a one-loss Notre Dame team gets in, Garrett?
Yeah.
If the one loss to Northern Illinois?
Man, I don't know. I think you're going to have too many teams, probably, unfortunately, from the SEC who can block that out. I think they kind of slipped up and missed their opportunity, especially if A&M turns out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Then that win means nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, that's our Wednesday wheel segment. What's on the big show today?
The big show. Did you have any others I can do in 2 minutes?
The only other one I had, they're 2-0, but Arizona has had trouble with their
I don't incomplete. We'll see after this week how good they are.
All right.
Because they're going to Manhattan, Kansas, and they are going to be in for a crowd. And I know that their fans are all in it now, but this is Arizona being in front of big crowds with a chance to win is a new thing. Yeah. It's a new thing. So
in football,
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. they're experiencing, they and Kansas are in real time experiencing kind of the same thing. Kansas a little bit ahead of them, but it's probably been weird for some of the football players who were there when they the guys who are 5th and 6th year guys at Kansas right now that were there right as Leipold got there, and then they're oh, there's people here. What? Oh, hey, a hot girl from my class came. Awesome. Oh man, she said no so many times. I'm glad we're good again. Holy cow. I couldn't have gotten laid in a monkey whorehouse with a bag of bananas before.